Welcome viewers once again to another episode from our platform. Today, once again, I have with me Air Marshal SN Murti, and he had already talked about Indian aviation MRO in our previous episode. And today, I'll be talking to him about the challenges which are hindering the MRO growth in India. And you can learn more about him by going to his profile, LinkedIn profile, the link to which is in the show notes below. So, Air Marshal Murthy, can you delve a little bit on the reasons for India's lag in MRO development?
See, the MRO's development that the initial lag that has taken place, as in the previous episode also we had covered a bit, say about the infrastructure and other things. But what has happened, where even if we neglect the infrastructure cost, the gestation period for an MRO to become profitable is very high, and the investment is it is a very high investment business. And what happens is that the OEMs have a lot of commercial interest control on this industry. Like generally, when you try to set up an MRO, the OEMs try to make a lot of business out of supply of spares. They restrict you from purchase of spares, making your own small spares, even like a rivet or something. They would expect you to get them from their approved their approved supply chains. So what happens is, for everywhere you will find that the cost is high. The second thing that comes up is the special tools, test equipment, and that is required to check the functionalities of the various systems while you are doing the servicing. And these special test equipment cost is again defined very high or kept very high, and their control of the nowadays, because of the too many systems are embedded systems, so they have a lot of control on their calibration and other issues. Like after 1 year, if equipment is due for calibration, after the 365 days are over, you will find that system is, because it's a software driven system, it stops functioning till you send it to the OEM. So they have a lot of such controls which make the cost of doing the MRO business very high. Other thing is the long gestation period. That if you are getting a business of MRO, if you get one aircraft for say initially for check A, then check B, check C. So what is happening is that some of the problems come up with the regulators as well, that the moment you have the third party MRO, you go for taking your clearances, the regulators do not give you the clearance for all servicings together. Even if you have the manpower, trained manpower, you have your tools, test equipment, your infrastructure is appropriate for it. What they do is they will ask you, if you are done the check A, then they give you a provisional approval for check B. Once you finish check B, then check C, C1, C2, then D. So from going from a start point of an MRO to becoming a heavy maintenance center, ultimately the aim of an MRO to become a heavy maintenance center where you can get the business from outside the country, rather than limiting yourself to one or two users of your own country. So that takes a long time. So in this particular thing is, I think the regulators will have to come in support with the Indian industry, that they do not restrict, because what happens is, in this particular case, sometimes you find that even the Indian non-scheduled operators, because they know that you have a check C clearance, and if their aircraft is due for check D, they prefer to take it to Singapore or somewhere where they find it, the check D is already cleared, because their regulatory authority has cleared them for all the checks once in one go. Whereas DGCA sometimes restricts this, because they go very cautiously. So these are some of the aspects that make the growth to be very restrictive and contributed for a slow growth.
Thank you for those insights. So if you look at the world all over, you have number of MROs, and of course, regulatory aspects are there because of the safety aspects and many other aspects which come into this field. So if you do a scan with your knowledge, can you give some best practices which maybe you could see give a solution, so to say, as an expert as to how we can really find a rightful place in this industry?
You see, to speed up the growth, you see, main thing is to speed up the growth and not to restrict ourselves only to few aircraft and the few in numbers. We need to get the business from the outside the country. And for that, you need a lot of money as well as the industrial facility to be set up within the MRO. Because if you are taking up any industrial facility services outside, then he has to be OEM cleared, he has to be audited by OEM, his quality control, all those things cost money, and ultimately business becomes unviable. So the best way for doing this is, in my opinion, is that it has to have some sort of a concerted policy from the government between the Ministry of Civil Aviation and Ministry of Defense, wherein we start considering the civil aviation also MROs as one of the locations which can support in doing the defense aircraft servicing. This, when I say this, is basically I have certain reason to say that, because we can discuss this also in subsequently. I'll come to those aspects. But if we have parallelly a vertical for the defense in the civil MRO, that will give an elbow space for the revenue flow, expertise development, and at the same time some industrial facility to be set up within the MRO. Because using the space indigenized within the country or within the MRO and use of it and clearance to use of it is much simpler in the defense quality control environment than in the civil aviation regulatory, which is heavily regulatory based. So that will give a initial boost for the revenue generation. At the same time, we are going to have a parallel facility whenever there is a need in the emergency, a parallel facility for defense to fall back on the civil aviation MRO in the case of an emergency condition. See, what happens is, if you would have realized that whenever there is a sudden urgent requirement to position the troops and the logistics, generally you will find the civil aviation coming in to rescue with the defense forces, and you send your troops to the forward area by using the Air India aircrafts and other aircraft, and also moving the material. That's a very simple plug and use facility. But can the MRO be used as a plug and use facility? MRO requires certain amount of expertise to use it. So in case of emergent requirement, our civil MROs should be able to come to our rescue for taking up the load in the case of hostilities and things like that. So that way it will provide them a base for their revenue generation, growth, as well as support for the nation whenever there is a requirement.
Thank you very much for those insights. And with viewers, on behalf of you, I thank Air Marshal Murti for his insights in today's episode. He has brought up some interesting new concepts, and we will talk about that more in our forthcoming episodes. Thank you for listening. Jai Hind.